So I'm a big fan of the urban fantasy genre, and what I found a lot when reading the books is that they tended to be in one of two places, and that was either a small town where everyone knew each other's names, or big cities like New York. So with Who's Afraid, I wanted to take the audience somewhere that they hadn't necessarily been before, which is why the book is set in Dundee, the city of Dundee in Scotland, and also Rotorua on New Zealand's North Island. So hopefully it's an interesting story. Hopefully people like the different settings and the different landscapes, and I grew up in New Zealand, so I kind of knew the place was rich with a lot of fantastic landscapes, mythology and characters. Essentially, Tommi is an amalgamation of all of the pop culture proto-feminist heroines that I grew up with. So people like Buffy and Lieutenant Ellen Ripley and Cora and She-Hulk and Wonder Woman and Scully, and I could go on forever. But one of the other fun things about her is that when you create fictional characters, you get to give them qualities that you don't have, or qualities that you've always wanted to have. And the flip side of that is you can also give them flaws and personality spikes that you maybe wouldn't ever want to have. So yeah, she's kind of a mishmash of all my pop culture inspirations, as well as a lot of things that I personally would have liked to have seen in a heroine when I was reading urban fantasy books. So I've been obsessed with werewolves ever since I was a little kid, as I'm sure you can probably tell. I grew up being tucked into bed at night, being read werewolf stories instead of fairy tales by my granddad. So that kind of had a definite effect on me early on, and I've always been interested in that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde idea of duality, which I think lycanthropy examines really beautifully. So when it came around to time to writing my first novel, werewolves was kind of it. And I also, as a big consumer of urban fantasy, I hadn't necessarily seen that many women werewolves. There's a few, but I hadn't seen enough to make me happy. And I kind of wanted to challenge that idea of only men sort of being given the place to be werewolves because they can inhabit that monstrous physicality. And I wanted to see how we would go with having a female character do that, and someone that was genuinely physically ferocious. Matilda. Not only has she got a great moral compass, she's super smart, and she has those handy telekinetic powers, so if she ever needs to go full Carrie, she can. It would probably be one of the Harry Potter books, say maybe Order of the Phoenix. I have forever been rereading those books ever since I read them for the first time, so I've pretty much been reading them for my rest of my life anyway. I think that world is so rich, and the universe building is just incredible. Those characters are unforgettable, and I think there's a definite reason they have been some of the best-selling fiction in history, and that's because J.K. Rowling has created this kind of indisputable masterpiece. Mary Shelley, she was an eternally fascinating woman, and she has this incredible dark imagination that brought us one of the best pieces of fiction of all time in Frankenstein, and something that really redefined the genre and pushed the boundaries of the genre. She was a raging feminist, which appeals to me a lot, and she, at the time, she really pushed the boundaries of what a female creative could do.